Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pits of Motor Chaos. This is yours, Dave. I got a line special guest from the America's 1320s legend, Tim Reisen. How you doing, Tim?
Good. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. So, Tim, how was your Christmas?
Not too bad. It was a little weird here in Chicago with 60-degree weather.
Yeah. Now it's getting back to wintry again.
Yeah, it's snowing now. We're paying for it.
Yeah. All right. So, first question, Tim, is how did you get into drag racing?
It's kind of a long story. When I was firstborn, my dad was into sports cars, and he was doing a lot of the SCCA stuff. And of course, as I got older, he kind of indoctrinated me into cars, and it just sort of snowballed from there. I got into building cars with my friends as soon as we got my driver's license, just like most of us do. And I started doing a little autocrossing at the time, and then just kind of naturally went for the acceleration factor of drag racing and said that this is a whole lot more fun.
So, what year did you start actually driving down the track?
I'd say realistically, probably 2005, 2006.
Now, what was the first car you drag raced in?
Actually, that Model A that you saw in the pictures.
Really?
I mean, there were other cars that did some street duty, but nothing really on a track.
Yeah. So, how did you meet up with the 1320 Legends?
Are you familiar with the meltdown drags that they were holding at Byron Dragway?
Yeah.
Well, I went to the first couple of the meltdown drags, and just based on the classifications, they kind of hooked me up in the altered and the front engine rail, vintage rail class, and met a bunch of the guys there. And just in the succession of years, we just kind of set it off as a little group, and we kind of set our little pit areas up together. And then it turns out a lot of the guys were the 1320 people, so they invited me to join their group, and jumped on that chance as soon as I could.
So now for 2020, do you know how many events you guys be running yet?
I believe it's 4 at this point. It's usually Labor Day, Memorial Day, the 4th of July, and then there's the Night of Fire, I believe they call it, which is also July, I believe. And then a bunch of us are going to probably also be attending the Brew City Gassers out of sight drags at Great Lakes Dragway too.
So now you guys aren't doing anything at Byron next year?
Yeah, well, actually, we'll be at Byron a couple of times. I'll be there for the Glory Days, which is the successor to the Meltdown Drags, and then I actually regularly bracket race the car at Byron.
Now, have you ever been to any other tracks with that car?
Yeah, a few tracks. Beach Bend down in Bowling Green, Kentucky. US 41 over in, I believe it's Morocco, Indiana. And then Eau Claire has the Rock Falls dragway.
Now, when you first started drag racing, did you have any drivers that inspired you out there in drag racing at all?
Well, as a kid, it was kind of fun to watch the Snake and the, Mongoose guys going back and forth. And of course, as I was kind of getting into this more and more, John Force was becoming kind of a key player in the funny car world. So he was obviously, live in your face sort of thing at the different events. And then I actually went to a few races in Indianapolis with some friends and just got hooked on the whole nitro car burning thing. And it was just amazing to me the first time I went to the track how close you could get up and personal to just about anybody there. I remember at the time it was Eddie Hill and Brad Anderson and Shelly Anderson cars. Just walked up and they would just literally start talking with you. Some of the pro stock guys. I mean, Warren Johnson was always kind of grumpy, but he would talk to you and he would sign autographs and stuff like that. So it was just kind of a mind bender to see how close the average Joe person could walk up and literally be a couple inches away from these cars in the pits. And you turn around and the drivers would be right behind you talking to somebody on their crew about something, and then grab a picture, grab an autograph. That's how it went.
Yeah. So what was the first? When was the first time you went to the Grove?
First time I went to the Grove as a racer was last year in Memorial Day. But I've been up there in the late 80s when I was in high school, but just going up with some friends. Just going shown to attend other events before I even had a car.
Yeah. So, do you have a greatest memory of Broadway, Bob?
Uh, I guess probably the best memory would be just the ones I never actually saw this. I only saw the pictures of it. But him sitting on the nose cone of the jet dragster.
Yeah, the Green Mamba.
You know, that was kind of like you see that over and over again in print ads, and then it always comes up on Facebook now and then. But I mean, and the crazy pants, of course. You can't miss it.
The crazy sunglasses too.
That's true. But yeah, that's the image that kind of sticks in my mind the most.
And you can't forget the beer in the hand.
Well, right, yeah. Most tracks wouldn't allow that now. Matter of fact, I saw a picture. I'm trying to think where it was. It might have been at the Grove too. It was some girl sitting on the hood of a wheel stand car.
Really?
It was a girl that looked like, had the image of like the Miss Hurst.
Right.
It wasn't actually Linda Vaughn, but it was that same style. And there was I want to say it was a Comet, Mercury Comet wheel stander, and she was literally sitting on the hood of it, and it's launching down the track with the wheels in the air.
Wow. Yeah, there'll never be another Broadway.
No, I don't think so. It's hard. You got to have a lot of character to pull off something like that. And I mean, how many people do you think have gone to the track because of what he did or the promotional things?
Man, he used to bring in a lot of big names in there.
That's true. It's just like at Byron when they had Ron Leake out there, making an effort to get to know all the drivers and throw a little something on the intercom about them and bring some knowledge to the fans, and then it felt like it was a more personal experience.
Yeah.
So you get a good promoter like that. That's just amazing.
So now, what the tracks that you've been to, you have any favorites out of these tracks?
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, the Byron being the home track, I've got the most experience there, so it's kind of like that's my favorite because I'm just more comfortable there. Union Grove is a great track to go hang out at and have fun, and everybody's been so supportive of that. And the coolest thing about that is coming down the return road in front of the crowd.
Right, it goes right past them, yeah.
And everybody, that's there. Every time it seems like they're throwing thumbs up and waving and cheering. Whether you won, lost, doesn't matter. That, as a driver, is really cool to see the people are really appreciating it. And I've never been to another track that has that. So that's one thing that's amazing.
Yeah.
When I go to Beach Bend, it's kind of a neat track just because it looks like it was left over from the 50s. It has the steeple-topped covered grandstands with all the wood scaffolding. Just a real neat nostalgia effect. And then, of course, just for fun, up in Rock Falls, we have a race there. The Meltdown guys do it called the Fallout Drags. And it's usually at the end of September, so the weather is nice and cool. So it has... Oh, I'm sorry?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought I heard a feedback there. Anyway, they have some nice temperatures there. So the cars have had some really close runs. I've had my closest run ever at that track. So each one has a little special part.
Yeah, then like you said, going past the fans at Great Lakes Drag, that's what you guys are there for, to put on a show for the fans.
That is true. And somebody had posted a picture of me from the angled grandstand looking backwards. And it was just amazing to see how many people in the stands were actually, pointing and waving at you. It's hard to see from the car sometimes, but when you see it from a photograph, it really stands out.
Yeah, the fans...
And it's neat, too, because it's, even towards the heading down towards the finish line, so many people are camped right up against the fence there under their, easy-up canopies or on the back of the trucks and stuff. Every one of them is just as excited. It's really cool.
Yeah, they love to see the long, smoky burnouts.
Oh, yeah. And they're fun to do, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And then you got some guys who do the dry hopping.
That's true. Yeah, I typically don't do the dry hops, just trying to save the equipment. And luckily, my car sticks pretty well, so it's not so much of a factor. But yeah, I can see that being a big part of the fun, especially in the match racing. If you got two guys that are going to be definitely close with each other, or they've got a little personal history that there's always an intimidation factor. You try to throw it back and forth. So yeah, that's definitely a part of the fact.
Yeah.
Even at night too, it even looks really cool.
So now, Tim, how was your first time experience going down a drag strip for the first time in your life?
First time was really cool because you have that whole adrenaline rush, then the whole boy, I hope this thing holds together fear factor, followed by the other side of the brain saying, look, let's take it a little bit easy on this and not give it a 100% run, just so we're sure what it's actually going to do. Like, for example, getting off the throttle onto the brakes with the weight transfer. Yeah, I wonder if it'll go straight, or how well the brakes will hold up. All the street time in the world doesn't exactly prepare you for that factor.
Yeah.
But then again, the adrenaline, it's just, wow, this is really cool. Look what I'm doing. Get to go as fast as I want, and no problems. No one's going to hassle me. And they're going to come back and tell me to do it again.
Now, have you had any accidents or close calls throughout your drag racing so far?
No accidents, knock on wood, but it did get a little hairy one time. Car unloaded on the rear end and vectored towards the wall, so getting out of the throttle and trying to steer it, I put the thing up on two wheels, which was a little interesting. And just happened to have one of my friends, lifelong friends, sitting in the stands with her husband, and she was actually taking a video at the time, and like after the fact, she says, "I thought you were going to die." And as I was coming back down the return road, my one of my crew guys that helps me get the car staged, Mike Rousa, he went into the porta potties and grabbed a strip of toilet paper, so he was waving it in a flag manner as I'm coming back down the return road. And he says over the intercom, he could hear them saying, "Hey, he's going to need more than that."
Wow.
So yeah, it was a dry, short run, so that actually didn't work too bad. But yeah, that was the worst one that really got my attention, where I thought something was going to go bad. I did get a flat tire once on a 9-second run, somewhere just past the finish line, but the car stayed nice and straight, and I was able to stop it safely and smoothly. So that was kind of a non-factor.
So
it was fun. It was kind of an offset, too, because that was the first time I made a 9-second run, and I was just so stoked about that, I didn't even care if the tire went flat.
Yeah. So how many crew members do you have?
I got two guys that usually come with me for most of the events. And then, of course, with the 1320 guys, there's any number of people that are always offering to help out or assist if something goes wrong. And, usually it does somewhere or another. Somebody breaks something. And that's probably the best part of that group is just the camaraderie and just like most racers that give you, any tools or parts that they have to help you make another round. These guys, just as a bunch of friends, they're literally here to help make sure you get to that next round.
Now, who are your main crew members, though?
My main crew member is Mark Esposito and Mike Rousa. They're the guys that actually help me get staged, run through the car, make sure everything's serviced as it needed, air pressure, fuel, things like that, and then get me situated. And sometimes both of them will show up, or sometimes it's one or the other, depending on the days and their alternate schedules. It's a lot of fun. I've known both of those guys. I've known Mark for probably 30 years, and I've known Mike for about 15 or so. Mike was the one that definitely is a diehard guy. He used to race Super Gas up in Union Grove.
So you're the crew chief for the car?
Yeah, we'll call it that.
Okay.
I'm the loose nut behind the wheel. Yeah, I kind of let Mark take over the crew chief duties because he's sort of got the mental checklist going through. Hey, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? So, and I let him do it because he's very good at it.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, it's like, oh yeah, I did forget that.
So now
it's nice.
So when you're on the starting line, Tim, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions when you're out there?
Not really a superstition, but I try to do everything the same way. It's interesting because with bracket racing, we're not allowed to do the big smoky burnouts. They want you to basically just haze the tires, get them hot, and then pull up to the line as soon as possible. Versus with the 1320 group, there's the show factor. You know, and you want to have a longer burnout. You know, if you want to go do the dry hops, as we mentioned, you're welcome to do that. Burnout across the starting line, that's encouraged. I've actually pulled the wheels on a burnout at one point because you've got that little hill of the grove there. That was kind of a little fun thrill. But it's really kind of what I try to do is the same thing as I do in the bracket racing. Is I'll do a little bit more of a burnout, but I still try to stop it before the staging beams, not to try to throw off my rhythm, just because I figure it's extra practice is for extra consistency. But then my other factor is always just making sure the fuel pump is on, because I actually ran out of fuel one time. It's just the stupid mistakes you make. You learn from it. Running down the strip and the electric fuel pump runs out of juice. So I'm in the habit of checking that fuel pump switch about 9 times between getting in the car and actually hitting the full stage.
So what do you got under the hood of that car?
It's basically it's a 60 over 350, 7.5 to 1 compression, Dart Pro head, the 871 blower, a couple of quick fuel QFI carbs, 750s, and then a little bit of nitrous.
So what year is the car?
It's a 1930 Model A. It's all Henry Ford steel, all original Ford steel, I should say. Doors, quarters, cowl, everything. I filled the roof in with a station wagon out of a Caprice wagon. Took out the canvas top. It's sitting on a aftermarket box frame. Had the roll bars done by a guy out in DeKalb, CRE Engineering, and then set it up with TCI front end and TCI rear end coilovers, sitting on a 9-inch.
So now, Tim, what kind of preparation goes into getting that car ready for the weekend of drag racing?
It's actually pretty minimal, unless I break something. Checking fluids, making sure that's good. Checking the hoses, making sure everything's tight. Air pressure is huge because this car it doesn't weigh very much. It's only 2,400 pounds, and it has coilovers on it now, and I'm not exactly thrilled with the performance. So I'm looking at doing a little upgrade there this winter. But it has a lot of travel, so air pressure. Let me say, a lot of travel in the sidewall of the tire. So air pressure is definitely key on this one. So if that's not set dead even, we're going to go for a little bit of ride sideways and add a few feet to that quarter-mile distance. So that is definitely one thing I want to hit up every time, just before we get called into the lanes. Because sitting in the sun, the exposed tires, the air pressure varies a lot more than you would think it does. You might be 3 or 4 pounds off just from sitting in the sun versus the shade. And then basically checking, making sure that the breathers are clear, because with the blower it does pump a lot of oil out the breathers, so they have to be cleaned out periodically. And then ridiculously cleaning the rearview mirrors because I can't see when I'm backing up the stage. Once I do a burnout, between the VHT and the water on the track, the mirrors become pretty coated with that glue. So to back up straight, I have to clean those mirrors religiously. Then the next thing is just making sure when we're in the car, everything's on, everything's engaged, pulling up to the lights. Big thing is get the car centered, because with the wider tires sticking out back, I want to make sure it's definitely in the groove there. So I line up the radiator cap with as I'm sitting in the car looking out the front, line up my radiator cap with the left side inner groove of the line, and that usually gets me right about where I need to be.
Now, do you do any eighth mile racing?
Not particularly 8th mile. We've done it a few times where the tracks have shortened the race, to an 8th mile event based on weather or based on water on the tracks. I don't really do anything different on the car because I'm giving it 100% regardless. So whatever it's going to do in the 8th is what it's going to do. The only difference being I'm only shifting into 3rd gear just about the 8th mile mark. So sometimes I'll actually leave it in 2nd gear if we are only running a full 8th, running an 8th versus a full quarter.
Now, what's your preference quarter mile?
I like a quarter mile. Yeah, it's kind of the traditional thing, and I like being able to hit the full range of power in the car and let it build up some boost in third gear as well. Just face it, it's a whole lot of fun. But in bracket racing, on an eighth mile, being one less gear and a little less time, it does cut out some of the gamesmanship and some of the not the stalling, but the sandbagging you might get from other drivers, because there's not as much time to make up any loss. So it kind of forces people to give a cleaner race, if you will.
No.
More of an honest dial-in versus an actual time. So.
Now, where do you get your fire safety equipment from?
Using the RCI suits, and then Bell helmet. They've been pretty good to me.
What kind of tires do you run on that car?
On the back, I'm running Hoosier QuickTime Pros, 31 by I can't even think what they are offhand. 31 by 16 and a half.
So what's been your quickest run with that car?
Quickest run so far has been a 949 at 141 miles an hour.
And what track was that at?
That was actually at Byron.
Now, so far in your racing career, have you reached any milestones?
That's a good question when you say milestone. I mean, I've never won a national event, or I've never won, a specific race that was like a holiday event or anything like that. But I've had a lot of events for me. I've had what I would consider a perfect run, like that 949 run. The car just went absolutely perfect. It had a great launch, wheels up in the air, hit all my shift points where I wanted to, crossed the line nice and stable, and slowed it down and didn't break anything. So to me, that was a perfect run. Did it matter based on what the other person ran? No, not particularly. And I didn't get any notoriety of it other than it's my personal best. So that's an accomplishment for me. So my goal is to beat that next time, and then that will be my memorable run. I don't know if you know Bob Nivens.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a race with him up in Rock Falls last year, and we were running side by side, and I went like a 10:27, and he went like a 10:23, and we had almost identical reaction times. And it was just probably the most fun race, because it looked like the cars were welded together all the way down the track. He wouldn't go away, I wouldn't go away. We crossed the lights. Neither one of us knew who won until we got our timing tickets. And drove back to the pits and looked at our tickets, and we were just kind of like, that was fun. Let's go do it again. I've never had a race that was that close before. So that was another kind of milestone.
Good side-by-side run.
Oh, yeah, and it doesn't get any closer than that. I had one bracket run where I hit my dial-in. I was 1/1000th off, and a competitor who's actually a friend of mine was also 1/1000th off of his time, and it was another, almost dead even run all the way down the track. He beat me on the reaction time, so obviously he won and went to the next round. But, that's what it's all about, giving it your best, and, getting taken out by a friend. Well, that's okay, it happens. But I knew he raced me hard, and I raced him hard.
All right, so I'm going to ask you some fun questions here. Outside of the drag racing, do you have any other hobbies?
Yeah, just kind of working around the house, doing a little home refinishing, finishing the basements, little amateur woodworking here and there. I guess it's kind of an extension of building a car, but that's that's it. And then I'm also just kind of interested as a sidebar in historic aviation. I've been going up to Oshkosh for their air show every year for about the last 18 years. Kind of hard not to get addicted to the air show stuff, too, watching all the planes up there.
Now, with these 1320s guys, you have a greatest competitor in that group?
Oh, that's a good question. I have kind of two going on. One is Kevin Krause. He's sort of the antagonistical one. He's got a much faster car than I do, but we always have a good time racing each other. We were in US 41 one time at a just a practice event. Basically, they were hosting a nostalgia event, and we basically turned a day into a red light fest, just trying to outdo each other. Let's see how early we can launch. So technically, we both lost a lot of those runs, but we had a lot of fun doing it. So, and then you go cook some hot dogs on the grill, and we have a great time. But Jared, he's got the red altered with the wing on it. He is probably the closest time-wise to me, and we've had a couple of really good runs over the last year and a half or so, and looking for more this year too.
Now, Tim, if you were able to do time traveling and go back in the time, would you do anything differently with the racing?
Oh yeah, I would have definitely started earlier. That's a fact, because then more time is better. So of course, I wish I wouldn't have waited as long as I did. That's for sure. The only problem is I would have had to have started a job earlier and been able to save the finances to make the racing happen. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It would have been cool, to be honest, to go back and see some of the stuff. I look at the NHRA now. You watch TV, and it's phenomenal what these guys are doing in the like the nitro classes, for example. There's not a whole lot of ingenuity or a lot of crazy ideas being tried. But if you go back to the 60s, they were talking about like front-mounted blowers and, methanol cars that were out there. Well, let's try some, crazy intake stack arrangement, or let's try a twin engine, or the dual slick cars that they had, a few of those out there. There's just, stuff that would never have passed today. People were trying and having some success with in some cases. And that was probably a lot more fun for them to do that. It would have been nice to see that live.
Yeah, right before I interviewed you, I was interviewing a guy, Alan McFadden. He used to drive Top Gear dragsters back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. But he was saying he would go against Don Garlits all the time, and Don Garlits would always come up with new kinds of engines and stuff all the time, and he'd raced against all the different Don Garlits versions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it would seem like you read these old stories and articles about the stuff, and as soon as somebody had something figured out, the other guys would jump on it, and now the next person would have to step up and come up with a new design or something that would be more efficient or more effective.
Yeah.
I think it was a great time of ingenuity. It would have been fun to see it.
Yeah, then nowadays with the funny cars and NHR, they almost all look the same now.
That's true. I've got a buddy, Paul Brown, who's built a replica, I should say probably an identical clone, actually more than a replica, of Doug Thorley's Corvair funny car.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to see this because, whoever built the Corvair funny car?
Right.
He's out there now with it, taking it to events. It's more of a static display in a Catco car, but it's just amazing to see it because it looks so different than any of the normal Camaros and the Barracudas funny cars that you would normally see from the time.
Yeah, I like watching the nostalgia funny cars.
Oh yeah, I think that's why I like the whole nostalgia racing because it kind of brings it back to when that stuff happened or when this stuff was first coming out, and trying to replicate the various time frames that these cars existed in.
Yeah.
If you look at the 1320 cars, there's a bunch of rails, but then you've got a few cars. We got a guy, Bob Huberty, running with a blown flathead on a short rail. It doesn't get much more nostalgic than that.
Yeah, I like that Pure Evil dragster.
Oh yeah, that's the green altered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good looking car, and when they get that thing sorted out, it's gonna be screaming.
All right, next question should be an easy, fun question for you. What is your favorite food to eat?
Oh boy. I'm going to say I don't think you can go wrong with a big ribeye steak and some garlic mashed potatoes.
Steak and potatoes. All right, what's your favorite beverage?
Well, if we're going to have that steak and potatoes, a good cold beer would go with it.
Now, with a good cold beer, you have a preference in beers?
I'm pretty flexible. I like more of the IPAs.
Now, how about non-alcoholic beverage? What's your favorite?
I just drink some Coke. Pretty basic on that front.
Now, do you have a favorite movie of all time?
Well, I tell you what, a favorite movie is the normal car guy, probably American Graffiti would have to rate right up there. However, there's two series of movies that I've been a fan of, and because they've been playing since I was a kid, and that'd be the whole Star Wars series and the James Bond series.
Now, did you go see the new Star Wars yet?
I did.
How was it in your opinion?
In my opinion, I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. And obviously this is kind of, the way Hollywood works here. It tied off, I don't want to give away any spoilers, it tied off enough loose ends for me that I was satisfied that it was done, that they finished the series. However, they left enough meat on the table that if they wanted to make some sidebar stories, they could pull that off too.
All right. So now, what's your favorite music, Tim?
We'll go classic rock. Big
Yep.
ZZ Top fan. Of course, AC/DC, Zeppelin, Stones.
All right. Now, when you were a kid growing up, did you have a favorite cartoon to watch?
Favorite cartoon, boy. I'm going to probably go with the Roadrunner ones. Roadrunner and the Coyote. Those were the classics.
That seems to be a big pick with a lot of you drag racers for the cartoon growing up, Roadrunner.
Well, I mean, when you woke up Saturday morning and you turned on the cartoons, I mean, that was it. That was, you get that, or the Super Friends, or there was, obviously Tom and Jerry and Woody Woodpecker guys and stuff like that. But a Coyote and Roadrunner just hit it for me.
Now, when you're at the track on a race day, how's your eating habit? Do you eat regularly? Do you eat light and wait till the races are done?
We eat early, often, and late. That's one thing we like to do. We like to bring the grills out there, and we have a lot of food. We're not weighing in for a wrestling match or anything like that. So, yeah, we usually start off with a nice breakfast, have some snacks, have some lunch, a late afternoon snacks, and then a nice dinner. Let's not forget some ice cream.
Now, can you think of one most embarrassing moment you had on the track?
My most embarrassing one is when I ran the thing out of fuel. I forgot to turn on my fuel pump. I mean, it's bad when you take off, you launch the car, and it just shuts down on you halfway. Car's off, and there's no apparent reason why it's off. Nothing broken. So you have to you pull off and get out of the groove, and you get out of the car, and the safety truck comes up, and they're all checking out, making sure that nothing's wrong. And it's like, I'm just out of gas. And then when the worst part of that was I had a Holley pump that it needed to be primed, so it wouldn't self prime. So I couldn't just turn the pump on and start it. I had to be towed back, and of course that's kind of
Yeah. Now, Tim, do you have any pet peeves?
Pet peeves, boy. Illinois traffic. That's probably the worst. Of course, anybody from whatever state would probably say the same thing.
Now, as far as the sport of drag racing goes, do you have a bucket list of anything you'd like to do still in drag racing?
Yeah, I'd like a couple things. I'd like to hit a 9.0 pass or 150 just for some personal milestone stuff. And then on the bracket racing, I'd like to win an actual full event. And then obviously keep the car as shiny side up as possible, and try to do this without breaking too much stuff. And I think that's my goal, is basically to have fun and keep up the spirit of this, and the camaraderie, and we'll call it outreach. What we do, try to get fans involved. Having one of the coolest things about sitting up at the Grove, for example, on one of these race events that we do, is the families coming by with all these little kids. You let the kids jump in the car and play with the steering wheel or the shifter or something, and you can just see it, the look on their faces, like they're having the time of their life. Like, wow, I'm in a race car.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you never know. One of these kids may grow up to get involved in doing something like this and buy a car, and then next thing you know, they're racing with you.
Yep, that creates the memory of a lifetime for that little kid.
Exactly, and that's something that we try to do anytime we take the cars out anywhere. Is you want to share that and build up that spirit and the camaraderie with these guys. Because you never know. It could be the next gearhead in training. So that's actually really cool to be able to do something like that. So as far as the milestone, I'd like to be able to keep doing that. Just, share the sport with the people that come to see it. It's their sport too.
Yeah. They'll be the next year for Christmas. They'll be asking for a junior dragster from mom and dad.
Absolutely, and then after a junior dragster, then they're getting into the daily driver car that they're hopping up on whatever budget they have, and then the next thing you know, they're building a track only car, and boom, there they are.
So what's been the fondest memory of your drag racing so far?
I'd say actually probably the camaraderie with the other drivers. It's been just a blast. Like with the 1320 guys, we're hanging out afterwards and, throw some stuff on the grill, maybe have a beverage or two after the races are over. I mean, how cool is that? You're just an awesome group of people to hang out with for a weekend, and it's just so much fun to be able to do what we do and what we love with other people that are doing the exact same thing. We're all here for the same reason, just to go out, have fun, and play around a little bit. Kind of show off. Let's face it, that's what we're doing. And especially with the bragging rights. Hey, let's just go challenge each other and see what we can do. And then who wins, who loses, doesn't matter because we're gonna go have cheeseburgers afterwards.
Yep, at the starting line, they're your biggest enemy. Then at the finish line, they're your best buddies again.
Oh yeah, and if you cross the line, it's like the race when I had with Bob. We were side by side, giving each other the thumbs up as we're crossing the finish line. It didn't matter who won. We didn't know anyway, but it's like it didn't matter because we knew that was a cool run, and let's go do that again. So I mean, as far as the memories, that's the best thing I have. Just taking back all the good times with these people and the friends that I've made over the years. Literally got friends from all over the country that have been to some of these nostalgic events. And it's almost like a little mini reunion seeing them at the different events. It's just so cool to be able to do that. I feel really lucky.
So what are you looking forward to the most out of the 2020 season?
In the bracket racing, a little more consistency for me. That would be good. I'm looking for, like I said earlier, I'm trying to get a new rear end put together for the car, and I hope that gives me a little bit better launching and a little better control in the car. So if that works and my consistency is better, I should have, knock on wood, maybe some wins. And then with the nostalgia group, I just hope to increase the speeds and, put on a little bit of a show for the people.
Now, if people listening to the interview want to see this beautiful car run anywhere, what's the best way for them to find out where you're going to be at?
Well, check the 1320's website. They'll have the schedule on. I don't know if it's actually up there now or not, but it'll definitely be there. Or look on the Byron Dragway schedule under the Pro Eliminator Series, and I'll be at those events as well, too.
Awesome. Well, Tim, I want to thank you for taking time to do the interview.
Oh, I appreciate it. Always love chatting with drag racing. It's been fun.
Maybe we'll do another one in the future. We'll see how you're doing.
Sounds good. Well, yeah, and if you come out to the tracks, stop by. The cooler's always open. All
right. Sounds good. You have a great new year.
You too. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll all get good out there in, about 4 months or so, 4.5 months.
Yep. All right. You have a great night, Tim.
All right. You too, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.